Out here, in the heart of the desert, the road doesn't end. It just disappears into silence. There are no witnesses, no streetlights, only the hum of your engine and whatever's waiting just beyond the edge of your headlights. For long-haul drivers, danger doesn't always come with flashing lights or warning signs. Sometimes it wears a friendly face, stranded, helpless, waving for help under the stars. But not every broken-down car hides a victim. Some of them are waiting for you. Tonight's story is about one driver who stopped to help and discovered the trap waiting behind the kindness. This is Darkwing Horror. Turn down the lights, and whatever you do, don't stop for anyone. The desert always feels different after midnight. It's not just the silence, it's the weight of it. The way sound disappears into the open air. The way the stars hang so close, they almost feel like eyes watching. That night, I was hauling freight across New Mexico. Dry goods, nothing important. Just boxes, tape, and paperwork that didn't matter to anyone except the company. I'd been driving since sunset, my eyes burning from the steady rhythm of the road. The world outside my windshield was a canvas of endless black. No houses, no towns, just the occasional highway sign and the skeletal outline of desert scrub sliding past in the pale beam of my headlights. The only sound was the hum of the tires and the faint rattle of a coffee thermos rolling in the cup holder. When you've been a long-haul driver for years, you start to find comfort in that monotony, the steady pulse of distance, the hypnotic hum of asphalt. But you also learn to pay attention to everything. Because when something breaks the pattern out here, it usually means trouble. It was around 1 a.m. when I noticed the first odd thing: the radio static. I'd been listening to a talk station out of Albuquerque, the kind that plays conspiracy segments at night, when the host's voice began to dissolve into a low hiss. Then, through the static, I thought I heard something else. Not words, exactly. More like whispering. I turned the dial slowly, but every frequency was the same white noise, faint distortion, and something under it that sounded like breath. It wasn't unusual to lose a signal out here. There were miles of dead zones, where even satellites seemed to forget you existed. But something about this silence felt heavier. I switched the radio off. The only thing left was the hum of my truck's engine and the distant, ghostly wind scraping against the glass. The clock on the dash read 1:03 a.m. Still 3 hours to the next scheduled stop. My eyelids were starting to droop, so I reached for the thermos, but it was empty. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago. I sighed and checked the GPS. No nearby stations, just miles of nothing. That was when I saw her. At first, she was just a blur on the edge of my headlights, a shape that didn't belong to the desert. I slowed down, squinting. The beams cut through the mist of sand and dust, and the figure sharpened. A woman. She was standing beside an old sedan with the hood up, hazard lights blinking weakly. She had her arm raised, waving frantically as I approached. Out here, that kind of thing is rare. People don't stop for strangers at night, not unless they're desperate. I eased off the gas, heart beating faster. My first thought was, could be a trap. My second thought was, she might really need help. The desert was cold, colder than you'd think for New Mexico. If her car had died out here, she wouldn't last long without heat. I pulled up a few feet ahead of her car and rolled down the passenger side window. The smell of dry dust and metal rushed in. She stepped closer to the headlights, maybe 35 years old, wearing a thin denim jacket and jeans. Her hair was messy, tangled by the wind. She looked exhausted. "Hey," I called out. "You all right?" Her voice trembled, but not from cold. "My car, it just died," she said. "Battery, maybe? I've been here for hours." Her eyes darted around, scanning the dark highway behind us. I leaned forward, trying to see better. "You got a phone?" She shook her head. No signal. No one stopped. Please. She took a small step closer to the cab, her voice breaking. I just need a ride. There's a town about 10 miles up. I'll get help there. She looked scared, but there was something else too. Something behind the fear. I hesitated. My gut told me to keep driving. You learn early in this job that good intentions can get you killed. But her voice, it didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded raw. And if she was telling the truth, if she'd been out here alone all night, then driving off would have been the same as leaving her to die. All right, I said finally. Hop in, but buckle up. We're not stopping till we hit the next town. She nodded quickly, relief flooding her face. When she climbed into the cab, I caught a faint smell, alcohol, maybe, or something chemical, sharp enough to sting the nose. Her hands were shaking as she fumbled with the seatbelt. You're lucky I came by, I said, forcing a nervous chuckle. Not a lot of drivers take this route anymore. She didn't answer, just stared out the window into the dark, breathing fast. After a moment, she whispered, We need to go. Please. I started the engine again. The gears clicked. The truck lurched forward, humming back onto the empty highway. For a while, neither of us spoke. The tires sang their low, steady rhythm, and the desert blurred by. Then she said something that made my stomach tighten. They'll come soon. Her voice was almost a whisper, but it sliced through the quiet hum of the truck like a blade. I turned to her. Who's coming? She didn't answer right away. Her fingers dug into the seatbelt strap, knuckles pale in the glow of the dashboard. They always come, she muttered. When the lights go out, when they smell the gas. My pulse quickened. At first, I thought she was just rambling, maybe high, maybe scared, but the way she said it, like it was a fact carved into her bones, made my skin prickle. Ma'am, I said, keeping my voice calm, if there's somebody after you, I can call the police once we get signal. Her head snapped toward me. No cops. Her tone was sharp, almost desperate. Then, just as quickly, her shoulders slumped again. Please, she whispered. Just drive. The cab fell silent again, except for the steady hum of the wheels. Outside, the desert stretched into infinity, a black sea under a sky full of frozen stars. The headlights carved two pale tunnels through the dust, and every few seconds, a tumbleweed rolled across the road, vanishing into the dark. I glanced at her again. She was staring out the window, lips moving slightly as if she was talking to herself. What's your name? I asked. She hesitated. Then, Hannah. All right, Hannah? I'm Dan. You're safe now, okay? We'll find help soon. Her eyes flicked toward me, then back to the window. You shouldn't have stopped, she murmured. I tried to laugh it off. Yeah, maybe not. Guess I'm too nice for my own good. She didn't smile. For the next 10 miles, she didn't say a word. The silence was suffocating. I tried turning on the radio, but all I got was static again. Somewhere deep in that noise, I thought I heard a rhythm, a faint tapping, like footsteps or a heartbeat. I turned it off. The GPS screen blinked, signal lost. Fine. I didn't need it. I knew the route. I'd been down this stretch a dozen times. Except the road didn't look right. I slowed down. The mile markers were gone. The asphalt had cracks running like veins through it, and the paint lines had faded to ghosts. I couldn't remember the last gas station I'd passed. Then Hannah started humming, a low, tuneless sound that barely rose above the engine noise. You all right? I asked. She didn't answer. Her face was turned toward the window again, the reflection of her eyes catching the light in a strange way, like they weren't focusing on anything in particular. Then she said something that froze me. They were supposed to take the next one. I blinked. What? She frowned, as if realizing she'd said too much. Nothing. I thought we'd be past this stretch by now. Past what stretch? I didn't ask. Something told me I didn't want to know. The road began to climb slightly, winding through low hills. The desert brush gave way to jagged rocks, black against the moonlight. Then suddenly, she reached out and grabbed my arm. Turn off the lights. Her nails dug in. What? Why? Just do it. The terror in her voice wasn't fake this time. It was real, sharp, electric. Against every instinct, I flipped the switch. The headlights died, and we were swallowed whole by darkness. The world outside vanished. For a few seconds, the only light came from the faint glow of the dashboard. My hands tightened on the wheel. My breath came fast. "Hannah, don't talk," she hissed. "Just listen." We sat there, rolling slowly through the night, the engine a low growl beneath us. And then I heard it. A faint metallic sound, somewhere behind us, like chains dragging on asphalt. I eased my foot off the gas, heart hammering. "What is that?" She didn't respond. Her face was pale, her eyes locked on the side mirror. In the reflection, I saw movement, a flicker of shadow between the beams of moonlight. Something or someone walking along the shoulder of the road. For a split second, I thought it was a trick of the light. But then the reflection steadied. A man. He was walking in our direction, slow and deliberate, one arm swinging strangely, like it was broken. I flipped the headlights back on. The road ahead lit up, empty. But when I looked in the mirror again, he was gone. "Jesus," I muttered. "You saw that, right?" Hannah's eyes were wide. Her lips moved soundlessly. "I told you," she whispered. "They come when it's dark." I opened my mouth to ask what the hell she meant. And that's when I saw it. Far ahead, just on the edge of the light, another car. Stopped in the middle of the road. Its door was open, swinging slightly. No driver, no hazard lights. Something was wrong with its shape. The front end crumpled, the windshield shattered. "Looks like a crash," I said, slowing down. "Don't stop," Hannah said quickly. "I just want to check." She reached across the console and grabbed the wheel. I said, "Don't stop." The tires screeched. For a terrifying second, the truck swerved toward the shoulder before I wrestled it back into place. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She was shaking now, tears forming in her eyes. "You don't understand. You think this road is empty. But it isn't." I stared at her, breath shallow. "Then tell me what's out there." Her gaze drifted back to the window. "Not what? Who?" She swallowed hard. "They take people. Drivers. The ones who stop." The words hung in the air like a bad smell, clinging to the silence between us. I wanted to laugh, to shake my head and tell her she was out of her mind, but something in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't the panic. It was the resignation. The way people look when they've already accepted something awful as truth. My throat was dry. "Who's they, Hannah?" She didn't blink. "You'll see them." Her voice cracked. "If we're not careful, they'll see you first." A chill ran through me, even though the heater was humming. "Look," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "I don't know what kind of trouble you're in, but I'm not part of it. I'm just trying to get you to town, that's it." She turned toward me slowly, and for the first time since she got in, I saw a flicker of something different on her face. Not fear, guilt. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "They said it would be quick. They said no one would get hurt." The truck rolled forward, engine rumbling low. The road stretched out endlessly into the dark. My fingers tightened around the wheel. "What are you talking about?" But she didn't answer. She just pressed her forehead against the glass and started crying, soft, silent sobs that barely made a sound. I thought about pulling over, just for a second, to get some air, to figure out what the hell was happening. But before I could, something flashed in the mirror. Headlights. Far back, barely visible through the rising dust, but there. They weren't behind me a minute ago. I squinted. Two lights, close together, flickering slightly. You see that? I asked. Hannah didn't move. Hannah, someone's back there. She lifted her head slowly, eyes red and swollen. When she saw the lights, her lips trembled. They found us. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe it was just another car. Maybe a local or a trucker. But deep down, I already knew better. The lights were too steady, too focused, matching my speed exactly. Who are they? I demanded. Her answer was a whisper drowned by the engine. They wear masks. What kind of masks? Anything, she said, voice shaking. Plastic, cloth, it doesn't matter. Just something to hide the face. Because when you look at them, you remember. That last part didn't make sense. You remember. But before I could ask, the headlights behind us flashed once, twice, like a signal. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The truck groaned as the speed climbed. 60, 70, 80. The headlights stayed exactly the same distance away. They're not speeding up, I muttered. They're pacing us. Hannah's hands were shaking again. They'll wait until we stop. They always wait. Who are they, damn it? But she only closed her eyes. You shouldn't have stopped for me. The road began to slope downhill, curving sharply between two ridges. The air grew colder. My palms were slick with sweat now. Every nerve in my body screamed to keep driving, not to slow down for anything. And then, movement. A figure stepped out from the side of the road, right into the beam of my headlights. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded, tires screeching, rubber burning. The world tilted, a blur of dust, headlights, and panic. The figure stood completely still, one arm raised, something long and metallic glinting in his hand. It wasn't a man, or maybe it was. I couldn't see his face. It was covered by a crude mask, like a paper bag painted black. He didn't flinch as the truck screamed toward him. At the last second, I jerked the wheel. The edge of the road tore under the tires, gravel flying. The truck fishtailed, spinning half a turn before I forced it straight again. When I looked back, he was gone. The headlights behind us were closer now. Too close. I could make out the shape of their vehicle. A dark SUV, old, dented, no license plate. I shouted, "Hold on," and floored the gas. Hannah screamed something, but I couldn't hear her. The roar of the engine drowned everything. We tore down the hill, bouncing over the cracks and dips. The SUV followed, lights shaking but never losing distance. "They won't stop," Hannah cried. I reached for the glove box, yanked it open. My hand brushed against the cold metal of the revolver I always kept there. "Don, don't," she started, but I cut her off. "Enough," I barked. "You tell me what the hell this is right now, or I swear I'll—" Something hit the truck, hard. A sharp clang echoed from the rear. The whole cabin jolted. I turned the wheel instinctively, and the desert blurred past. "Did they hit us?" I yelled. Hannah didn't answer. She was staring straight ahead, mouth open in silent terror. Then I saw why. Up ahead, on the shoulder of the road, two more figures, standing motionless, both wearing masks. One held a crowbar, the other something longer. I realized what it was when he stepped closer. A rifle. "Get down," I shouted. The crack of the gunshot split the night. The windshield spider-webbed, glass spraying across the dash. I ducked instinctively, my ears ringing. Another shot. This one hit the side mirror, shattering it completely. I hit the gas again, tires screaming, smoke filling the air. The SUV fell back slightly, its headlights bouncing. Somewhere behind us, I heard laughter, faint, distorted by the wind, and I didn't know if it was coming from them or from Hannah. Because she was laughing too, softly, like she finally understood something I didn't. I didn't stop driving for the next 15 miles. My hands were locked to the wheel, my knuckles white, and my throat burned from breathing too fast. The desert had swallowed everything again. No headlights behind me, no sign of the SUV, not even a sound besides the steady growl of my engine. But I didn't trust it. I kept expecting the lights to flare up in the mirror again, to see one of those masked faces leaning out the window, smiling. Nothing came, just silence. When I finally slowed down, my body ached like I'd been in a fight. Hannah was slumped against the window, her face ghost pale under the dashboard light. For a moment, I thought she'd passed out, but then I heard her whisper something under her breath. I leaned closer. "What did you say?" She didn't look at me. "They won't stop. Who are they?" I asked again, voice cracking. "Why are they after you?" Her eyes flicked toward me, glassy and distant. "Not me," she said. "You." That made no sense. "What do you mean, me? I don't even know them." She didn't answer. Her lips twitched, almost like she wanted to smile, but the expression never formed. She looked sick. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, like someone trying not to throw up. I considered pulling over, just for a second to check if she was okay. But every nerve in my body screamed that stopping was the worst thing I could do. I needed light, people, civilization, anything that didn't move like a shadow. A faint glow appeared ahead neon, flickering, the unmistakable pulse of a gas station sign. I almost laughed out loud. It was one of those 24-hour places with a single pump and a soda machine humming by the door. I pulled in fast, my headlights sweeping across the cracked pavement and old vending machines. The air smelled like rain that never came. I killed the engine, but left the lights on. "We're stopping here," I said. Hannah stirred, blinking like she'd just woken from a dream. "No," she whispered. "Not here. I'm not asking. You need to get out. I'm done with this." I opened my door, stepping into the cool night. My legs were shaking, not from exhaustion, but from the leftover adrenaline that had nowhere to go. The air was dry and thin. It burned when I breathed. Behind me, the truck door opened. I turned around. Hannah was standing by the cab, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, like she was praying. Her expression had changed. The fear was still there, but now it looked controlled, like she'd decided something. "I told you," she said softly. "You shouldn't have stopped." "You're saying that a lot," I muttered. "You got somewhere better to be?" She looked past me, toward the empty road. Her eyes widened. "We need to go." I followed her gaze, expecting to see headlights again. Nothing. Just the dark ribbon of asphalt fading into the distance. "You're paranoid," I said. "You need rest." "I need to call for help." I started toward the door of the gas station. The lights inside were dim, flickering like dying fireflies. As I stepped closer, something in the glass caught my attention. My reflection was faint, stretched by the curvature of the window. But there was another shape behind it. A second silhouette, standing just a few feet back, unmoving. I froze. My pulse hammered in my ears. Slowly I turned. Hannah was still by the truck. She hadn't moved. "You see someone?" she called out. I didn't answer. The inside of the station looked empty. A few dusty shelves, a counter, a soda fridge humming quietly. No movement, but I knew what I saw. Or thought I saw. I pushed the door open. The bell above it gave a dull, lifeless chime. The air inside smelled of oil and stale coffee. "Hello?" My voice echoed off the walls. Nothing, not even the buzz of a fluorescent light. Just that faint hum from the fridge. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the back. My hand went instinctively to the gun tucked under my jacket. "Anyone there?" I said again, louder this time. The footsteps stopped. Silence. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Nothing. Maybe it was a pipe expanding. Maybe an animal. Maybe my brain refusing to calm down. I exhaled and turned to leave and nearly collided with Hannah. She was standing right in the doorway, her face ghost white. "Jesus," I snapped. "Don't sneak up on me like that." "We need to go," she said again, eyes fixed on something behind me. Now, I turned, expecting to see someone in the aisles. There was nothing, just that low hum. "There's no one here, Hannah." "You're seeing things." "Please," she whispered. "They'll smell the gas." That sentence again. The one from before. The one that made no sense. I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but that's when I smelled it too. Gasoline. Faint but distinct. The kind that gets in your throat and stays there. "What the hell?" I murmured, glancing down. The tiles near the counter glistened faintly in the dim light. A thin sheen of liquid trailed toward the back room. "Hannah," I said slowly, "wait outside." But she was already backing away, eyes wide. Then, from the dark beyond the counter, came a sound. A soft metallic click, like someone cocking a gun. My blood ran cold. "Run!" I shouted. I grabbed her arm and yanked her toward the door, just as a flash of light and the thunderclap of a gunshot split the air. Glass exploded. I hit the ground, dragging Hannah with me as shards rained down around us. The bullet tore through the window, whistling past where my head had been a heartbeat earlier. I heard movement inside, heavy footsteps pounding across the floor. Another shot closer. The bullet punched through the doorframe, wood splintering inches from my shoulder. We scrambled to the truck, slipping on gravel, lungs burning. Hannah yanked open the passenger door and dove inside. I jumped behind the wheel, fumbling for the keys, heart in my throat. "Go!" she screamed. The engine roared to life. I slammed my foot on the gas, tires spinning before catching traction. The truck shot forward, fishtailing out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, I saw the front door of the gas station burst open. A man stepped out, holding a rifle, his face hidden beneath a black ski mask. He didn't chase us. He just stood there, motionless, watching as we sped away. When the distance finally swallowed him, I realized I was shaking so hard my hands could barely grip the wheel. "Who was that?" I rasped. Hannah didn't answer. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. I turned to her. "Tell me right now what's going on?" She stared straight ahead, tears glinting in her eyes. "You were never supposed to stop," she said. "You were supposed to be gone before they came." My heart sank. "You knew about this?" "I thought they'd let you go," she whispered. "I thought if you drove fast enough." "If I drove fast enough what?" Her voice broke. "They only need one." Her last words echoed in my head long after the sound of the engine drowned everything else. They only need one. One what? One victim? One driver? One body? I couldn't focus. The road blurred, my eyes darting between the mirrors, waiting for headlights to reappear. The darkness out here felt different, now denser somehow, like the desert itself was listening. I'd driven through storms, flash floods, even a damn tornado once, but this was the kind of danger that made your instincts twist and scream, because it wasn't natural. It wasn't random. Someone or something had planned this. Hannah sat silent beside me, her head bowed. Her hands trembled in her lap, but I wasn't sure if it was fear or guilt anymore. I finally spoke. "You want to tell me what the hell that meant? They only need one?" She didn't look at me. "You wouldn't believe me." "Try me." She swallowed hard. "They pick the road. Every month or so, always a different stretch. They break down a car, leave it just where it'll catch someone's headlights. One of them stands out there, plays the victim. Usually it's a woman. Sometimes it's me." Her voice cracked on that last part. "Jesus Christ," I muttered, my grip tightening on the wheel. "You're telling me what? You work with them?" Her eyes glistened with tears. "I didn't have a choice. They took my brother years ago, said I'd get him back if I helped. If I brought them someone who'd stop." I felt the heat rise in my chest. Anger, disbelief, exhaustion, it all mixed into something close to rage. So I was just a target. That's all I was to you? She looked at me then, really looked at me. "You stopped. You weren't supposed to stop. Most people don't. You should have just kept driving. You flagged me down," I snapped. "You waved me over." "I know," she whispered. "That's what I'm supposed to do." The words hit harder than I expected. My knuckles whitened against the steering wheel, the leather creaking under my grip. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The road stretched on endlessly ahead, the headlights carving two narrow tunnels through the dark. I thought about pulling over and forcing her out, but something stopped me. Not pity, not fear. Instinct. Because something about her story didn't fit. If she'd been part of it, why did they shoot at us? Why did she scream when the bullets hit the glass? Unless she wasn't supposed to survive either. "You said they only need one," I said carefully. "So what happens to the other one?" She stared out the windshield. "They disappear." The way she said it flat, simple, made my stomach turn. I could feel my pulse in my throat. "How long have you been doing this?" "Too long," she said softly, "but not by choice." Outside, the desert wind howled, a low moan against the metal frame of the truck. I could almost believe it was a voice, whispering things I didn't want to hear. I caught movement in the mirror again. My first thought was another vehicle, but it wasn't light, it was shadow. Something crossing the road far behind us, where the darkness looked thicker. I pressed harder on the gas. "You think we lost them?" I asked. "They don't get lost," she said. "They know every road, every turn. They built this route. That's insane." Her lips twitched, a humorless smile. "Isn't everything?" I wanted to argue, to call her a liar, a lunatic, but I couldn't shake the image of that masked man standing perfectly still in the gas station doorway, the smell of gasoline, the gunfire. And that moment, right before we escaped, when I could have sworn I heard laughter from inside. I glanced over. Hannah was staring straight ahead, her face lit faintly by the dashboard glow. She looked exhausted, broken, but calm now, too calm. "What happens if they don't get one?" I asked quietly. She looked at me for a long time before answering. "They take both." The engine hummed louder. My throat went dry. A faint sound rose from the back of the truck, metal shifting, the dull thump of something moving in the cargo bed. I froze. "You hear that?" I whispered. Her eyes darted toward the back window, then down. "Don't look." "What?" "Don't look," she repeated, voice trembling. "If you see them, they see you." I ignored her and checked the mirror anyway. At first, there was nothing but darkness. Then the truck jolted slightly, like something had landed on it from above. The roof groaned. A slow scraping sound moved toward the cab. My blood turned to ice. Something was crawling on the truck. I slammed the brakes, swerving onto the shoulder. The world tilted. Gravel sprayed against the windows. The truck skidded to a stop, dust swirling around us. The roof went silent. For a second, I thought maybe it was just my imagination, until a single hand slapped against the windshield, fingers spread wide, nails dirty and cracked. A mask leaned into view, plain, featureless white, like a mannequin face smeared with dust. I froze. Hannah screamed. The thing tapped its fingers slowly against the glass 1, 2, 3, and then was gone. I started the truck again, tires spinning in the dirt, and we tore back onto the highway, my heart hammering so hard I could barely see straight. When I finally dared to look back, the road behind us was empty. But the smell of gasoline was back, stronger this time. Hannah was crying again, whispering over and over, "They only need one. They only need one." I didn't say anything, because somewhere deep down, I knew which one they wanted. I kept my foot on the gas until my legs started to cramp. The highway cut through the desert like a blade, and I pushed my truck as hard as it would go. Every nerve in my body screamed, "Keep moving." The air smelled of burnt rubber and gasoline, the same smell I'd caught in that gas station before the gunshots. It clung to everything now: my clothes, my hands, my lungs. Hannah sat rigid beside me, silent. I could feel her watching the mirrors, the windows, the darkness beyond the headlights. Every few minutes she'd whisper something under her breath that I couldn't quite catch. It wasn't prayer. It sounded like counting. After a while, the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by something worse: doubt. None of this made sense. Who were these people? What did they want? Why me? I needed to think clearly, but my thoughts kept circling back to the same image, that pale, blank mask pressed against the glass. I gripped the wheel tighter, trying to steady my breathing. I had to get control of this situation. "Listen," I said finally, breaking the silence. "We're going to find a truck stop. Big one. Lights, cameras, people. They won't follow us there." Hannah didn't respond. I looked over. Her face was turned toward the window again, eyes unfocused, mouth moving soundlessly. "Hannah," I said sharply, "are you hearing me?" She blinked and looked at me. For a moment, her eyes seemed to clear. "You can't go where there are cameras," she whispered. "They'll see you." "What are you talking about?" She shook her head. "They don't like being seen. That's how they find you. Through the screens, the reflections. That's why the glass broke. They were trying to stop it." That didn't make sense. None of it did. But I didn't argue. I was too tired, too confused. I just wanted to make it to sunrise. The road began to narrow. The asphalt cracked and faded. My GPS flickered to life for a second, showing a fork ahead, then went black again. A weathered sign appeared by the roadside letters, almost erased by wind and dust. "Rest area 2 miles. 2 miles." That's all I needed. But before we reached it, Hannah stiffened. "Slow down," she said suddenly. "What? Why?" "Just please, slow down." I eased off the gas, watching her out of the corner of my eye. She pointed ahead. There. At first, I saw nothing. Just desert and road. Then, as the headlights swung around a curve, I saw a faint shimmer on the asphalt, a slick patch stretching across both lanes. Oil? I slowed further, instincts kicking in. My father had been a mechanic. I knew what oil looked like on a road at night. This wasn't oil. It was too thick, too dark. When the smell hit me, I knew what it was. Gasoline. A trap. I slammed the brakes, the truck lurching violently as the tires screeched against the pavement. Something moved ahead, shadows breaking away from the darkness. 3 of them. Men. They stepped into the headlights, faces hidden behind crude masks. One of them held a metal pipe. Another had a rifle slung over his shoulder. The third raised a hand, signaling me to stop completely. My heart thundered in my chest. Oh, God. Hannah's voice was barely a whisper. "Don't stop." But the road was narrow, no shoulder, and the sides dropped off into rocky slopes. If I tried to swerve around, I'd flip the truck. The man with the rifle shouted something I couldn't hear over the engine. His voice was deep, deliberate, like this was routine. "Dan," Hannah said, gripping my arm. "Please, whatever happens, don't open the door." "What are they going to do?" She didn't answer. The man with the rifle took a few steps closer, staying just at the edge of the light. The other 2 fanned out, one to each side of the truck. I realized then that they'd planned it perfectly. The gasoline slick was meant to slow me, to control where I stopped. There was no escape route. I shifted the truck into reverse. The man with the rifle raised the barrel, pointing it directly at me. I froze. He shouted again, more forcefully this time. Through the noise, I caught a few words. Out. Now. My brain raced. If I got out, I was dead. If I stayed, maybe I had a chance. I met Hannah's eyes. You know these people, I said quietly. Her lip quivered. I used to. Before I could respond, a loud thud came from the back of the truck. Then another. Something or someone was climbing into the cargo bed. Hannah flinched. They're here. The man with the rifle gestured again, impatient. The other two began closing in, their footsteps crunching against gravel. I reached for the glove box, praying the revolver was still there. My fingers brushed metal. Relief flooded through me. Stay down, I said. Hannah shook her head violently. Don't. You'll make it worse. But it was already too late. The man with the rifle took one more step forward. I saw his hand tighten on the trigger. I drew the gun and fired through the windshield. The blast shattered the glass, the recoil jerking my arm back. The man's mask snapped backward as he fell out of the light, his weapon dropping to the ground. For half a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the other two surged forward, shouting. I slammed the truck into drive and hit the gas. The tires spun over the gasoline slick, then caught traction, launching us forward. The two masked figures dove out of the way as we tore past them, the mirror clipping one of their shoulders with a crack. The smell of burning fuel filled the air. Behind us, a spark lit the slick on fire. Flames erupted, chasing the truck down the road in a river of light. Hannah screamed. We shot through the blaze, heat slamming against the windows, until finally the fire fell away behind us, and the desert swallowed everything again. I didn't speak for a long time. My ears rang from the gunshot. The world felt hollow. When I finally looked at Hannah, she was staring at the revolver in my hand. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. He was going to kill us, I said. She shook her head slowly. No, he was going to take you. Her voice broke. And now they'll take both. The highway stretched ahead in a blur of white lines and heat ripples. I'd been driving for so long that the motion felt disconnected from my body, like the road itself had taken over, dragging me wherever it wanted me to go. The smell of burnt fuel still lingered inside the truck, mixing with the sharp tang of fear that had become my constant companion. The revolver sat on the passenger seat between us, black and heavy. Neither of us spoke. I could still see the faces, or what passed for faces of the men, behind the masks. They weren't human anymore in my mind. They were something else, hollow, faceless, built only to chase. The sky was starting to lighten, a dull gray smudge bleeding into the horizon. Dawn, I thought. Just make it to dawn. That was all I needed. The dark didn't feel safe anymore. It didn't belong to me. But even as the light returned, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't leaving the night behind. It was coming with me. Do you know where we are? Hannah's voice cracked the silence like glass. It was the first thing she'd said in nearly an hour. Somewhere east of Deming, I think, I said. If we keep going another 30 miles, we'll hit a truck stop big one. Lights, cameras, people. They can't follow us there. They already have. Her tone was flat, almost calm. I shot her a look. You saw them? She didn't answer. Instead, she was staring at the side mirror. You shouldn't look, Dan. Not yet. My pulse kicked up again. I glanced at the mirror anyway. Nothing but the thin gray smear of the road fading behind us. Empty. I forced a shaky laugh. You see? They're gone. She smiled faintly, but it wasn't relief. That's what they want you to think. Her words crawled under my skin like splinters. I turned up the radio just to fill the air with something human. The static hissed, then caught on to a faint country station. For a moment, a man's voice crooned about love and cigarettes, warm and mundane. I could almost pretend we were two strangers sharing a ride, not running from something I couldn't explain. Then, mid-chorus, the signal warped. The singer's voice slowed, distorted, until it became something else, a whisper, a wordless murmur that rose and fell like breathing. I slammed the radio off. A few miles later, the first signs of civilization appeared. A billboard for a gas station called Redline Fuel and Diner, promising hot coffee and showers. I could have cried. The thought of bright lights and other people felt like salvation. When we reached the turnoff, the sky was fully gray. The station sat just off the interstate, surrounded by open desert, the neon open 24-hour sign flickering weakly. 2 big rigs were parked by the pumps. I could see a man leaning against one of them, sipping coffee, talking on his phone. Safe. Finally safe. I pulled in fast, gravel crunching under the tires. The engine coughed and went still when I killed the ignition. The sudden silence was deafening. I turned to Hannah. "Get out," I said gently. She looked at me, eyes wide. "They'll see me." "They'll see you?" "Who?" I started, but stopped myself. I was too tired to argue. "Hannah, listen. There are people here. You're safe now, okay? I'm going to get help. Just stay in the truck if you want." I got out before she could respond, stretching my stiff legs. The air felt cold, sharp against my skin. I could smell gasoline again, faint but distinct. Maybe it was just the pumps. Inside, the station was bright and almost painfully normal. The smell of coffee, the low hum of a freezer, the tired smile of the cashier behind the counter. It was all so ordinary that I felt out of place, like I'd wandered into someone else's reality. "Morning," the cashier said. "Rough night?" "You have no idea," I muttered. I grabbed a coffee, hands shaking so hard I spilled half of it before I could take a sip. When I stepped back outside, the sunlight had finally crested over the horizon. The sky glowed pink and orange, washing the asphalt in soft light. For the first time in hours, I felt something close to peace, and I noticed Hannah was gone. The truck door hung open, swinging gently in the wind. I set the coffee down and scanned the lot. "Hannah?" No answer. The man by the big rig looked over. "You lose someone?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, walking toward him. "She was in my truck brown hair, denim jacket. You see her?" He frowned, scratching his jaw. "Can't say I have. Been out here 20 minutes. Didn't see nobody, but you pull in." I forced a smile. "Yeah? Probably just went inside." I turned back toward the station, but something in his voice made me hesitate. "Hey," he said. "You sure you're all right? You look like hell." I didn't answer, because in the reflection of the truck's window behind him, I saw movement. A shadow slipping past the far side of the building, quick and deliberate. I grabbed the revolver from the seat and took off around the corner. The space behind the station was narrow, littered with trash and rusted oil drums. The morning light didn't reach back there. It was still half dark. "Hannah!" I called out. A whisper answered me. Not words, just the sound of breath. I turned sharply. My hand tightened on the gun. Something glinted by the dumpster, a piece of metal, half buried in sand. I knelt down, brushed it off. A phone, burner style. Black, dead battery. The back was cracked, but there was something scrawled on it in marker. "Don't stop." A chill crawled up my spine. That's what she'd said. Over and over again, and I heard a sound I'll never forget. The truck engine started. I spun around. Hannah was in the driver's seat. I don't know how she got there. I never even heard her move. The engine roared as she slammed her foot on the gas, and the truck lurched forward, gravel spraying. "Hannah!" I shouted. "Wait!" She didn't even look back. The truck shot down the highway, taillights fading into the rising sun until they vanished completely. I stood there for a long time, the revolver heavy in my hand, the empty burner phone still in my pocket. When I finally went back inside, the cashier glanced up. "Everything okay out there?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, just lost a passenger." He smiled faintly, like it was a joke he didn't understand. "Happens to the best of us." I didn't reply. Outside, the highway shimmered with heat. For a moment, I thought I saw the truck again, a flash of sunlight on glass, but it could have been anything. I tried to convince myself it was over, that she was gone, and I was safe. But when I started my engine, the smell hit me again. Gasoline. Strong this time. I looked at the passenger seat. The revolver, my jacket, the seatbelt hanging loose. And sitting there, tucked neatly between the seats, was something that hadn't been there before. A small plastic mask. White. Blank. I didn't touch it. I just stared until the horizon blurred and the sun turned the desert gold. Then I drove. Because I knew if I stopped again anywhere, for anyone, it wouldn't matter what I believed. They'd already found me. I drove for nearly an hour after leaving Redline Fuel and Diner, following the highway as it cut through the desert like a scar. The sky was pale now, washed out by daylight, but the world still felt empty. I kept waiting for the illusion of safety to settle in, that moment when your shoulders finally drop and you start to believe you've survived something. It never came. The sun just made the emptiness clearer. The heat shimmered on the asphalt, the wind pressed against the windows, and the smell of gasoline clung to everything. I told myself I was just imagining it, the smell, the feeling, all of it. That's what fear does. It lingers. It makes you see ghosts in daylight. But even as I tried to believe that, I couldn't ignore what I saw next. The glove compartment was slightly open. I was sure I'd slammed it shut before leaving the diner. A small sliver of light fell across the hinge, catching something inside. I reached over, pulled it open. The revolver was still there, sitting exactly where I'd left it. But underneath it, wedged deep into the seam, was something else. A phone. Not mine. It was one of those cheap black burner phones, the kind dealers and drifters use. The casing was cracked, dusted with sand, but when I held the power button, the screen flickered to life. Battery, 6%, no lock screen, just an open message thread. The first line sent a jolt through my chest. Got him. He stopped. There were other messages, short ones, timestamps from earlier that night. Same route, same truck. 2 with her. Take the gas. The last one was half-typed, never sent. Driver armed? Then it cut off. My hand started shaking. I dropped the phone onto the seat and just stared at it. I don't know why, but I looked up into the rearview mirror right then, expecting to see headlights, a mask, something. But there was nothing behind me. Just the long, bright stretch of desert. I told myself to breathe. Just breathe. But something in me already knew the truth. This wasn't random. This wasn't bad luck. They'd been waiting for me. I reached for the dashboard camera. I always kept running during deliveries. It was still blinking red. I ejected the memory card, slid it into the laptop I kept in the back. The footage loaded slowly. Frame by frame, the audio distorted by static. The first few clips were normal. Desert, headlights, Hannah by the side of the road waving for help. Then, a few minutes after she got in the truck, something flickered in the corner of the frame. A light. Headlights, far behind us, too far to make out. The next frame, they were closer, then closer again. And in one still image, just before the crash, I saw them clearly for the first time. Not just the truck following us, but a second one parked off the shoulder. 3 men, masks, and standing in front of them, Hannah. She wasn't tied up. She wasn't running. She was talking to them, smiling. My stomach turned. I skipped forward to the moment I picked her up. Rewind. Play again, frame by frame. There, just before she waved. She looked past me into the darkness and nodded, like someone had given her permission. I shut the laptop, heart pounding. For a few seconds, I didn't move. The truck hummed quietly, the air conditioner fighting the heat. I stared at the phone again. The screen was still glowing faintly. Another text had appeared. No notification sound, no vibration. Just the words already there. You should have kept driving. My throat tightened. I turned the phone over. The back panel had a small sticker, faded but still legible. Property of Redline Freight Co., my company. I sat there for what felt like forever, staring at it. I'd worked for Redline for 6 years. I knew every dispatcher, every route manager, every truck. But something clicked then, something I'd never noticed before. The deliveries. The sudden last-minute route changes. The assignments to remote highways that never showed up on the public maps. I started to wonder how many other drivers had gone missing. How many times the same trap had been set. I opened the phone again, scrolling through the contacts. Only one number was saved, listed under a single letter, M. Without thinking, I pressed call. The line rang once, twice, then connected, static, and then breathing, slow, steady, familiar. I froze. Hannah, I whispered. Silence. Then through the hiss, a voice, not hers this time, a man's voice, calm, deep. You made it pretty far. My mouth went dry. Who is this? You shouldn't be calling from that phone. I glanced at it, my pulse hammering. Why not? Because we can see you now. I dropped the phone. The line went dead. I looked out the windshield. The desert was blinding in the sun. No shadows, nowhere to hide. But in the reflection on the glass, faint and pale, I saw it again. A mask, not outside, behind me. I spun around. The back seat was empty. The smell of gasoline hit me again, stronger this time, flooding the cab. And then I heard it. A soft click. Somewhere beneath the seat. I reached down slowly, heart slamming against my ribs. My fingers brushed metal, small, cold, taped to the underside of the seat. A device, a burner detonator. And beside it, a note, in the same handwriting as before. If you stop again, it ends. I yanked the truck door open, stumbling into the sunlight. My knees hit the dirt. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the note. In the distance, I thought I heard something. An engine, not mine, getting closer. The horizon shimmered. And in the heat, 3 figures appeared, walking down the road. Masks gleaming white under the morning sun. They didn't run. They didn't need to. Because they knew. Eventually, every driver stops. By the time I reached the next town, the sun was high, bleaching everything white. The heat shimmered across the asphalt, turning the horizon into a blur. I pulled over by a diner that looked like it hadn't closed in 30 years. Chipped paint, dusty windows, the smell of bacon and burnt coffee drifting through the air. I left the truck running. I didn't want to turn it off again. Inside, the air conditioning hummed quietly. There were only 3 other people, a couple by the window and an old man hunched over a crossword puzzle at the counter. The waitress behind the register gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You look like you've been driving all night, she said. Yeah, I murmured. Something like that. I sat at a corner booth, facing the parking lot, watching the truck idle through the glass. The sound of its engine was the only thing keeping me grounded. The hum, the vibration, It meant I was still here, still alive. The waitress poured me coffee without asking. The smell was sharp, almost comforting. "Where you headed?" she asked. "Nowhere," I said. "Just driving." She smiled faintly, like she'd heard that before. "Well, you be careful out there. Road gets strange when you're tired." Strange. That word stuck with me. I nodded, thanked her, and watched her walk away. My hands trembled as I lifted the cup. My reflection in the window looked older somehow, pale, hollow-eyed, like I'd lost a few years in a single night. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the burner phone. The screen was black, dead again. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe proof that it all happened. Maybe because part of me still needed answers. I opened it out of habit, pressed the power button. Nothing. Then, for a moment, a faint light blinked. The battery icon flashed, and the screen came to life. A single message appeared. No sender, no number, just words. "Still driving?" I froze. My heart stopped beating for a second. Then the phone buzzed again. An incoming call. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. At first, nothing. Just static. Then a voice. Calm. Familiar. Then my blood turned to ice. It was my dispatcher, the one who'd given me this route. "Sir?" I said, forcing my voice steady. How did you get this number?" "You did good work," he said. "I was worried you wouldn't make it this far." "What are you talking about?" I whispered. "You sent me out there." "We send everyone," he said, matter-of-factly. "Some don't come back." I could hear paper shuffling in the background, a sound of keys typing. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't running. He was in an office somewhere, air-conditioned and calm. "Why?" I asked. "Why me?" "You were loyal," he said. "Dependable. You didn't ask questions." He paused. "Now you understand the route." I stared through the window at the highway stretching out beyond the diner. "The route?" I said slowly. "It has to be maintained," he continued. "Someone always drives it. Someone always stops." The line crackled. "You're not the first, Dan, but you'll be the last for a while." Then the call cut off. The phone screen went blank. Outside, the truck engine sputtered once, twice, then went silent. The entire diner seemed to exhale with it. The hum of the air conditioner faded. The world went still. I stood slowly, every movement heavy. Through the window, I saw something lying on the driver's seat. Something that hadn't been there before. A mask. The same white, blank mask. For a long time, I just stood there, staring at it, my reflection trembling faintly in the glass. Then I heard the engine start again. But I wasn't touching the keys. The headlights flicked on, washing the window in light so bright I couldn't see my own face anymore. Behind me, the waitress spoke softly, her voice strange and distant. "Coffee's on the house, driver," she said. "You'll need it for the next run." When I turned, she was gone. The diner was empty. I stepped outside, into the light, the heat pressing against my skin like a warning. The truck door was open. The engine idled, steady and low. On the dashboard, the burner phone buzzed one last time. A message appeared. Next pickup, 1 a.m. The wind carried the smell of gasoline again. Sharp, heavy, inevitable. I looked down the endless road, the same one I'd sworn I'd never drive again. And yet, somehow, I knew I would. Because out here, the road never ends. It just waits. If you made it to the end, you already know the rule. Don't stop for anyone. Don't answer the call. And never, ever take the same road twice. If this story kept you awake tonight, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, so you'll never miss what's waiting on the next highway. This is Darkwing Horror. Drive safe. And remember, when you pass someone stranded on the road, They might be waiting for you.